Okay, good evening. This is a continuation of the November 24th board meeting. There are 7 board members present. The board has been in closed session for setting a price for sale or lease of property owned by the district, negotiations, employment of employee, approval of 10/27/15, November 4th, 15, and November 10th of 15 closed session minutes. And I want to make a comment that the board does not take action in closed session. All action is taken in open session. So let's rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is public comments. I have 2 cards for public comment. Mary Young and Sean Bowen. Well, Mary Young first.
She can go. We're just going up and have. No, I'm sorry. Oh, got it from the mic. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, my name is Mary Young. I am a parent here in the district. I have a child at York, a child at Sandburg, and a child at Field. So I've been here for a while. I have been asked by some of the families from Field School, where my youngest goes, to come and represent them. And these families are families of special needs students who are affected by the planned move of their 2 instructional classrooms from Field to Emerson. We received a notice last Friday in our child's backpack that this action would happen. And we are here just to request that the board consider having a forum for the parents, a group forum where we have representatives from the board or the presentation from the Finance Committee to talk about why this move happened or is going to happen, and to explain basically the process that got us to this point. There's a lot of individual meetings that are going on between parents and the administration. And we understand that each child has an individual IEP and those are necessary. But there is an overall decision process that happened at this group, and that information, while it's public record, really hasn't been discussed, and the parents have really, as parents, haven't had a chance to, as a group, express concerns or comments or alternative options that they may think. Again, one of the things is we were looking forward to, we knew that there was some space issues, and we were looking forward to the forum on the District 205 Focus Forum, where we thought that those would be discussed, and this kind of came before that. So we're hoping that we can have one that specifically addresses our kids and this move. That's all I have.
Okay.
And she spoke for.
Okay. Okay, Jan Dorner.
My name is Jan Dorner. The purpose of the Open Meetings Act is to ensure that the actions of public bodies are taken openly and that their deliberations are conducted openly. To further this policy, the General Assembly has instituted training requirements for each elected member of a public body. Members of the public may also take this training, and I just did, and I learned some interesting things. For instance, under exceptions to open meetings, closed session, that was page 31, the following was stated. Because these exceptions are contrary to the general requirements that meetings be open to the public, They are to be strictly construed, which means that they will only apply to situations that are clearly within their scope. Thus, discussions in a closed session under an exception must be limited in scope to the specific exception authorizing the closed session. For example, one of the statutory exceptions allows a public body to hold a closed session for the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body. Under this exception, a public body may not hold a closed session to discuss whether to sell or lease the property or whether to accept an offer for its purchase. Those are matters that are beyond the scope of the exception, which authorizes holding a closed session only for the purpose of setting a price for the property. At the September 8th school board meeting, the agenda included this specific exception under closed session. Toward the end of the open meeting, under the agenda item board communication, then Vice President Shannon Ebner, when announcing information about the city's use of the Madison School property for water detention, stated, "The board was able to come up with consensus on issues like reimbursement, termination, and educational purpose, and so give our attorneys direction on how to finish the IGA." After the meeting ended, I asked both Mrs. Ebner and then President Collins, "When did the board discuss the IGA?" Mrs. Ebner replied, "In closed session," and Mr. Collins added under the items, "setting of price for sale or lease of property owned by the district." Neither reimbursement nor termination nor educational purpose would fall under the closed session exception of setting of price for sale or lease of property owned by the district. Since this meeting, the school board has met an additional 3 times in closed session under this exception on September 22nd, November 10th, and tonight. At the most recent meeting of the Stormwater Communication Committee meeting on November 12th, City Manager Grabowski reported that he was meeting with the superintendent about getting the Bryan agreement done. Grabowski stated that the school board meeting was the previous night and the board gave the superintendent some direction on where they wanted to be. They talked about a number of things related to shared services and shared material storage facilities. None of this was discussed at an open meeting at the board table. For the past 2 years, until the September 8th meeting, the school board has been discussing the possible dual-use intergovernmental agreement with the City of Elmhurst for District 205 property in open session. I'm asking that you return to this practice, that you release the tapes of discussions that were not supposed to be in closed session with the appropriately discussed closed session pieces redacted. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, it's the board's practice to listen to input at the public comment, and we don't typically engage in any debate, but we'll address these issues appropriately with the administration. Okay, approval of board meeting minutes. October 27th, November 4th, November 10th of 2015. Are there any modifications to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, those minutes will be approved as presented. Superintendent's agenda, the consent agenda. Are there any items that the board would like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that the board approve the superintendent's consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, N.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Emily, seconded by John. We need a roll call vote.
Ms. Bastido?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes. 7 ayes, no nays, that motion passes. Next on the agenda is superintendent's action items. Dave?
Okay, the Elmhurst Teachers Council ratified the tentative agreement at its meeting on Friday, and so you have an item on here for you to, a recommended motion on here for you to approve the agreement. And I would ask for a motion that approves the negotiated agreement between the two parties.
Okay. We need a motion?
I move that we approve the agreement between the Elmhurst Community School District 205 and Elmhurst Teacher Council Local 571, American Federation of Teachers.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Margaret, seconded by Emily. Is there any discussion?
Since I was involved with the negotiations, there was quite a bit of great information that was shared and discussed that I think that it's important for us to share. So I wanted to just read a statement. A stated objective and outcome of the negotiations was to build trust and commitment to district-wide collaboration for improvements leading to increased student outcomes and achievement. We've received commitment from the certified employee leadership team, and now its memberships, thank you, that they have trust in the district and will work collaboratively to engage, cooperate, and participate with the administration's plan to move the district forward, as we've been talking about over many years now. And so that's wonderful. We began some of this work recently with our initiatives, such as the Mobile Learning Initiative, or now titled Mobile Learning Implementation. It requires innovation, creativity, and change in the delivery of how we deliver education in the classroom and across the district. We've received positive commitment to support District 205 in that effort, professional development, and research-based assessment study and best practices for improvement in delivering of middle school education, better preparing our students for their York High School experience, which then helps launch them into college and career success. Another objective that we have heard over the past 4 years was that the certified staff specifically wants to return to the days when other districts look to District 205 more frequently as a district with best practices. And that's a wonderful thing. So we have commitment from the negotiations team that volunteer teamwork would be done to implement best practice solutions to resolve issues, improve delivery of education, and efficiencies in working teams and processes. So we'll, collaborate to resolve the issues that we have been brought to our attention over these number of years. So we're very pleased to have worked constructively to put past negative culture behind us. That was good in this negotiations. And so we have commitment from the certified employee leadership team to lead the membership forward as they have in getting to this stage. And so we thank you. In a positive teamwork culture where everyone's committed to solving the district issues for the good of all. This is where we wanted to be. Everybody's been talking about it, and so we just wanted to make sure that it's stated. This commitment to working together for positive solutions for all will be critical as we continue to hear the very probable state legislative changes regarding school funding, pension cost shifts to the district, and property tax freezes, to name some. We also receive certified staff commitment to support changes necessary to offset these funding costs and whatever we'll have to do in order to, if those things happen, how they happen, that we're going to work together as a collaborative team. For the good of all, which is a wonderful thing as well. So we welcome it and we thank you. And I also have to say that I would be remiss if I did not stress or share my trepidations regarding the financial stability or sustainability as we hear about these legislative changes especially, given the educational funding and the impact to our finances moving forward. We've got facilities issues and all those sorts of things. So I just need to make that statement clear too, is that is what we do, is we have to steward all of the requests, all the issues, and all the finances. So with a commitment from our largest employee group to be positive and help us as we need, I support this vote. It keeps our students learning, teachers teaching, and employees willing to help us as we need moving forward. And that's what we've all been talking about, and that's what we discussed. And so I think it's important for us to share that with everyone. Thank you.
Who's next? John? Chris? Go ahead, John.
I was told by an old lawyer that when parties reach a settlement in a difficult case, usually both parties feel like they got the worst end of the deal. And I don't think this is any exception. There are some positives and there are some negatives to this agreement for both parties. From the board's perspective, there are some positives. I'm not going to go through a long list, but the changes to the health care program, there appears to be, through changes in there, a collaborative effort to contain costs, especially avoiding the so-called Cadillac tax. There are some changes regarding professional development that allow more focused in-house professional development to help our superintendent lead the effort to elevate the educational experience in our schools. Some things are not specifically called out in the letter of there, but there is certain commitment to move forward with middle school changes and a letter agreement to discuss moving away from the salary. Among the negatives from the board's perspective is the concern relating to the compensation increases contained in the agreement. There's a concern that it could exceed our revenue sources limited by the Illinois tax cap law. And it's a very valid concern. It does require more money. However, my personal belief is that the tax cap law itself provides a lack of sustainability. And while one can make the argument that this agreement aggravates that to some extent and will require more money to get there and therefore provide greater challenges, this contract doesn't create those challenges. They exist in virtually in every case study we looked at, including our own offers. There is a need to restructure in the future to deal with the fact that the revenues under the Illinois tax cap law are limited. So my perspective is that, first of all, let me say thank you to the negotiating team. Both sides, they worked very hard to try and get to an agreement that both could reach, both could agree to. The board is sincere in wanting to work with the teachers. We come up here every couple weeks and we say how much we value the teachers. We value the teachers. We are concerned with the fiscal condition of the district. And yet we do believe that our appreciation of the teachers recognizes that we desire that they have a career path, a career trajectory that exists here at District 205, because we know we're a better organization when the best come and the best stay. So I support this agreement and appreciate all the people who came together to make it happen.
Chris?
Thanks. I think I'd like to start by saying that my position in no way is intended to communicate a lack of respect for the dedicated teachers of District 205. We're fortunate that great teachers come to our district to pursue their vocation, not based on requirements of a contract, but in willingness to go above and beyond to ensure every student gets the best education possible, and we appreciate that. That said, I would like to share my thoughts on this particular contract. When we approached negotiations, there were a handful of principles that I believe were critical to the foundation of any deal that we would have. First and foremost, research has indicated that having a great teacher in every classroom has the largest influence on student achievement. I believe to accomplish this, that requires District 205 to have a competitive compensation package versus our peer districts, which enhances our ability to attract a deep candidate pool for new positions and allows us to retain our top teachers. And second, it requires an emphasis on teacher professional development, growth, and collaboration. Secondly, I believe any contract must be financially sustainable both during the contract term and thereafter, and doesn't kick the can down the road to future boards. With respect to the first point, attracting and retaining great teachers, I'm proud to say that over the last several years, District 205 ranks in the top 3 and in many cases is the top paying district among districts with whom we compete for talent. Unfortunately, we do have some gaps, particularly at the high school level, but by and large, we are one of the top paying districts in the county. Second, the district statistics show that we have a very low attrition rate and very strong demand for new teaching positions. We have tons of applications for our jobs. I think we hire 1% to 2% of the people that actually apply, so we have no trouble attracting great candidates. With respect to the second point of financial sustainability, due to the property tax cap, District 205 revenues are tied to CPI, and we must tie the Consumer Price Index or inflation, and we must tie our expense growth to our revenue growth to be sustainable. We have unprecedented uncertainty with respect to the future of state finances and their impact on our district and our taxpayers. In the news lately has been the pension shift, the funding formula changes, the property tax freezes. The district also has no current capital fund balance and a significant long-term capital needs, which will need to be financed from the operating fund balance or a referendum if city TIF surplus distributions are not sufficient. So that adds financial risk. We have made significant commitments of funds to our mobile learning initiative, which ramp up over the next 5 years if we expand it into the middle school, further into the middle school and elementary levels. Significant funds, we got that one. In uncertain times, it's prudent to carry a fund balance sufficient to provide runway to adjust any negative effects of legislation while minimizing the immediate impact on the classroom, meaning that if we were to be, if our budget were to take a hit from Springfield, having the opportunity to explain that to our local taxpayers and ask for more revenue should we need it is valuable, and that's going to take some time. My evaluation of this contract is rooted in these principles and is driven by a desire to balance the interest of all constituencies, including teachers, parents, students, and taxpayers, all in the context of our current economic environment. In summary, I believe that this contract further elevates compensation above what is already a market-leading pay structure with very little to show for it. In particular, I believe it fails to link growth in compensation, which is the majority of our cost, with CPI, which drives the majority of our revenue, which significantly increases the risk of future deficits. I believe it also places the financial risk entirely on the district, our children, and our taxpayers. In exchange, we got more committees and agreements to discuss important issues rather than providing for concrete changes to improve operational and financial efficiency and the overall ability of the administration to professionally manage our district. I don't believe that this adequately addresses compensation gaps, as it's a one-size-fits-all compensation increase. And I believe it continues the practice of pension spiking. Actually, it does continue the practice of pension spiking, including large end-of-career raises and excessive personal and sick days, which are far above those in comparable districts, which are typically not used by our teachers, but rather accumulated in exchange for service credit for purposes of pension calculations at retirement. In conclusion, I don't believe that not striking is a sufficient enough reason to justify such a significant surrender of principles. I believe this contract will drain fund balance and is not long-term financially sustainable for our district, and as such, I cannot support it.
Anyone else? Margaret, then Jim, okay.
Well, I wanted to be last, and I wanted to be sure that while I was guaranteed that my peers would clearly state the concerns that the district and the administration had, I also wanted to talk about the positives that we got from this agreement. I recognize the concerns, and as John stated, any well-mediated agreement, both parties walk away less than satisfied. So that is to be expected, and there is growth and there is areas that we can improve. What I am most happy for from this agreement is that we managed to focus on the positives. Having sat through, 100 and plus hours of discussions with both parties, we heard each other's perspective, and we listened to try to understand what their concerns were, what our concerns were, and sometimes that was very difficult to do. But we listened and we got agreement on key principles and key issues. Now, neither party is completely satisfied or happy with it, but we committed to continue to work together. And that's what a contract's about. That's what negotiation is about. It's continuing to work together on key issues. So with that, I am very happy with our agreement, and I am very satisfied that we can continue to move forward and focus on key educational issues in order to move our district forward.
With Margaret, I'm happy for our teachers in this agreement, but I want to explain my dissent in voting for this agreement. To be clear, I love our teachers. I have the greatest respect for them. And I would vote for this, but we simply can't afford it. Our revenues are limited to inflation, which in this contract will register through the 3 years at 0.8%, 1.5%, and this year's number is likely to come out between 0 and 0.2%. But in this contract, about 3/4 of our teachers are in the range where step is 3.25% or 3.5%, and we're guaranteeing an additional 1.5% to the base, which is over the course of 3 years about 15%. When inflation, which is what limits our revenues, will be nowhere close to that. In addition, we're depositing thousands of dollars into teachers' health savings accounts under this contract. I just want to remind my fellow board members of a few things. First of all, when asked, property taxes are the #1 concern of the citizens of Elmhurst. The school district is the majority of everyone's property tax bill. And teachers' salaries are the single largest line item in the school district's budget, comprising over 50% of our total budget. As we deposit thousands of dollars into our employees' health savings accounts, the people that are supplying those thousands of dollars to their property tax bills, many are sole proprietors or small business owners who buy their health insurance through the exchange. Their premiums are going up 39% this year. Our taxpayers entrust us with their hard-earned money to spend wisely. And they trust us to spend their money to make this school district a better district and improve the educational opportunities for all of our children. As Chris said, by many measurements, we have roughly the best compensated unit district teachers in the county. This contract just widens that gap. There are many ways to improve our district and use our district resources wisely. Unfortunately, this is not a problem that we're solving with this contract. I was very happy to be able to vote to, I was very happy to have the resources so I could vote yes to hire technology coaches to help our teachers integrate technology into our classrooms in order to engage students in their own learning. I'm also very sympathetic to the fact that there are 2 markets in Illinois for the services of high school teachers. I am very open to solving this problem, but no proposal was brought to the board to do so. In addition, our unfunded maintenance budget of $1.5 million a year, we need to be cognizant that we need to maintain our buildings. But this proposal will pass tonight, despite my dissenting vote. And I just want to point out to our staff that our administration is hugely supportive of this new contract. Our administration has given our teachers a huge vote of confidence through this contract. And in return, over the next 3 years, I would expect our staff to cooperate with our administration to the utmost. So.
I just wanted to finish with just a couple of statements, and I wanted to thank Margaret and Karen for the hundreds and hundreds of hours, and then everybody else on the negotiating team, all sides. The amount of time and stress and commitment is unbelievable. And I hope that we can continue the conversations of understanding, district-wide collaboration. The negotiation process really doesn't end, so I look forward to ongoing conversations. So the next time around, we understand each other's issues already. Then the last thing, too, is it was important to settle this contract so our district can get back to our students, our main priority, learning and teaching, and focus all the professional conversations on our students. With that, we will take a roll call vote.
Dr. Harrell.
Yes?
Ms. Bastido.
Yes.
Mr. Collins.
Unfortunately, no.
Mr. McDonough.
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen.
Yes.
Mr. Bloom.
No.
Mrs. Ebner.
Yes. That's 5 ayes, 2 nays. That motion passes. Okay, we have 2 donations, one from Hawthorne and then one from Edison.
The first one from Hawthorne is for atomic clocks in the amount of $1,499.50. It's recommended that you accept this.
Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education accept the donation from the Hawthorne School PTA in the amount of $1,499.50 to purchase 50 atomic clocks. The donation is accepted in accordance with Policy 880, Gifts to the District.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by John, seconded by Emily. Any discussion?
Just like to thank the Hawthorne PTA for their efforts in making their school a better place one more time.
Anything else? Okay.
Mr. McDonough.
Yes.
Ms. Bastido.
Yes.
Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Mr. Bloom.
Yes.
Dr. Harrell.
Yes?
Mrs. Stufen.
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner.
Yes, that's 7 ayes, no nays. That motion passes. Moving on to the next donation from Edison. Karen?
I move that the Board of Education accept 3 donations from the Edison School PTA. One in the amount of $539 to purchase an online subscription to Science Flix. The second in the amount of $675 to purchase the National Geographic Explorer Pioneer Edition magazine. And the third in the amount of $674.40 to purchase student novels. These donations are accepted in accordance with Policy 880, Gifts to the District.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Karen, seconded by Emily. Any discussion?
Thank you to the Edison PTA for coordinating these efforts to help us with educating our students in science. It looks like it'll be great fun, and we value the community supporting the schools as much as they do. Thank you, Edison.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Stufen,
Yes.
Ms. Bastido? Yes. Mr. Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. McDonough,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Dr. Harrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner.
Yes, it's 7 ayes, no nays. That motion passes. Moving on to Superintendent's communication.
There were 3 Freedom of Information Act requests that we received. 2 requesting specific test data, both were granted. 1 requesting specific emails, which was also granted. And the second item, in your Illinois School Board Journal, there were 2 articles. You received this, but I put them in your packet anyway, just because they were especially pertinent to our 2 student achievement objectives on assessment and student engagement. The first talked about balanced assessment. It talked about, or actually I should say, we are working on improving our assessment system to become a more balanced assessment system. And we are also in the process of taking a look at our district performance indicators, as well as asking ourselves some serious questions about how we use our instructional time. So the Steve Cordigan article addresses all 3 of those in different ways, and we'll be coming back to you as Charles makes some presentations on some recommendations for how we handle testing in the district next year. And then the next article was by a superintendent in Indiana that talked about one-to-one personalized instruction, which of course we have implemented this year, year 1 of the MLI implementation, with some initial support that one-to-one does indeed positively impact student achievement, student engagement, and has the potential to be more cost-effective. Of course, as a lot of districts are in the early stages of this, we're still learning a lot about them, but some of the early indicators are promising, and since these are areas of focus for us, I thought it was important that we just kind of reinforce the work that we're doing and also put that in the context of what other people are saying out there, just to kind of try to help us grow our knowledge and move along the spectrum of getting better. And these 2 areas, with our student achievement objectives, we anticipate that these will be consistent over time. They may evolve or they may take on different types of shapes and forms, but the idea of assessment and student engagement, we think, will always be extremely pertinent to how we structure our student achievement and school improvement efforts. So that's all that I have tonight.
Any questions or discussion? Go ahead.
Dave, I wanted to thank you for bringing these things to us, and then also bringing it, not only what we're doing, so the linkage, but what other districts are doing across the state and across, the nation. We talked a lot, once again, in negotiations that our staff, wants to be research-based and best practices, and we've been talking about that. And so we thank you for keeping us on track with it and sharing with us what other districts within the state and across the nation are doing. So I want to thank you for that.
Sure.
And
Thank
keep
you.
it up, because that's what we talked about how many years ago, and you're bringing it to us, and I think it's great. Thanks for leading us.
Sure, certainly. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Board communications. Anything from the board? Okay, go ahead.
we had a learning and teaching committee, which I guess we'll report out at the next board meeting. But I won't be here at the next board meeting. I have a business trip that I need to be on. So I'm going to ask Margaret, who so kindly took notes during that meeting, to do that reporting out of that meeting. But one thing that came up that Karen brought up is that we have not, the cohort program, when it was initiated, was brought to the board for board approval, and the board hasn't heard much about it since. Initially, we had a lot of we got a lot of feedback from our parents the first year, but have not heard anything from parents or our administration since. I wonder if we could ask the high school to come and, either in the December or the January meeting and give us an update, bring some data on the cohort, and just tell us how things are going.
Charles has some data on cohort, and Michelle from learning and teaching, between the two of them, I think certainly could report as to what our intent is. But it's a little premature for me to make certain public statements, but your concern about the relative effectiveness and efficiency of whether or not that's the best way to approach some of those concerns, we've asked some very pointed questions about that, and I expect to be able to communicate some things to you very shortly. And we are actually, at this point, we expect that the high school schedule and the way we approach it going forward into 2016-17 will include some changes to some differences from our current approach.
And I assume the board will be involved in those recommendations?
Well, we want to report to you, we've had conversations with the high school over the past 2 to 3 weeks about this. So we want to issue a thoughtful, information piece on some of the issues related to cohort and what we think is a better option. So we were intending to do that. We just aren't ready to bring that forward just yet.
What's the time frame you've got in mind?
Well, as I said, we're 2 to 3 weeks into talking about this, and we're in the preliminary stages of talking about master schedule options. Course selection is going to be ramping up. And so I think in order to meet the appropriate timelines, it would either be the December board meeting or the first meeting in January.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I would just like to add to that, and certainly with all respect to Charles and Michelle and doing the reporting, I also would like to hear from the high school or a representative from the high school on a reporting out of the cohort.
Okay, anything else for board communications? Okay, action on closed session items. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of agreement between Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205 and Elmhurst Paraprofessional and School-Related Personnel Council, Local 571, IFT-AFT.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, moved by Emily, seconded by Jim. Any discussion?
I'm wondering if administration could kind of just give the public a brief summary of the contents of the agreement and why it was required and what it does in just brief fashion. We have had in our district some situations in the past where some of our employees who are hourly, that we've had some concerns about how we've compensated them in alignment with the Fair Labor Standards Act. What this memorandum of agreement does is it allows us to pay our PSRP employees who are pulled from their normal assignment to substitute teach in a classroom setting due to a shortage of certified subs in a given building on a given day. And so those people are certified substitutes or hold a teaching certificate, but they work as a support staff member. And allows us to pull them and put them into a classroom situation to ensure that education continues for those children. What happens sometimes is with our most senior support personnel is that the rate of pay that we would pay a substitute teacher for a half day or sometimes a full day is actually less than what the hourly rate of pay would be that those members would receive were they to work in their capacity as a support person. So this memorandum of agreement allows us to be able to pay them a higher rate, commensurate with their hourly rate of pay, and in some cases slightly higher, to avoid any conflict with the Fair Labor Standards Act and compensates our employees appropriately. Thanks for taking proactive action on it. I note that it's not posted in the public section. Can we, the item is, but not the agreement. I wonder if we could post that for the public.
Yes, we will have it posted as soon as we have the signatures from the president. We have the secretary and the board signatures. We need the PSRP president's signature.
Great. Thank you.
We need a roll call vote.
Ms. Bastido?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen?
Yes.
Dr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes, it's 7 ayes, no nays, that motion passes. Upcoming meetings. I see the December 8th meeting will be rescheduled, is that right? Okay. That's also the night that there's a meeting with one of, a presenter. I know you sent an email out, Dave, about December 8th.
Yes, Tony Wagner's going to be in the area, and some of the board members did express an interest in attending that. I guess I was unaware of the Finance Committee meeting at the time, but it appears that Chris is comfortable if we, and Chris Bloom as well? Okay, so.
Okay. And then we have a board meeting on December 15th, 7:30, and then another board meeting January 12th, 7:30 PM. Is there any, oh, John, go ahead.
Is there a stormwater session coming up anytime soon? I'm not on the invite list, I guess.
I don't know. The last one conflicted with, I think, one of our own board functions. I can't remember what it was anymore. So it's community engagement. So we were unable to attend. I have not heard of, or I'm not aware of when the next one is. If they've sent out an invitation for that, I don't recall having seen it. Unless I missed it. So I don't know. I met with Jim Grabowski today. I mean, conversations are ongoing. So we're trying to progress as quickly but also prudently as possible. But as far as that next meeting that the city hosts, I'm not aware of a date for that.
Okay, I just kind of like to tighten up a little bit our coordination with them ahead of time about the meetings and the agenda items, and then issue the public notice. I think too often we're getting the public notice without any discussion of what's on that agenda, the ordering and so forth, and so we've had to kind of do it after the fact. So perhaps we can work with the city a little bit better about that.
The fourth forum for our community engagement process is next Wednesday, December 2nd, 7 to 9 p.m. at the York Commons. Facilities. Oh, the topic is facilities. I don't have the whole phrase, but it will be about facilities. Okay. So we're at the end of the meeting, and I declare the meeting adjourned.